All right, and here we are. We're here with, well, quite frankly, she hails from the Ice Garden. We're joined by Lady Frost. How's it going today, Lady? Or Miss Frost?
Hello, hello.
How are things going today in this crazy world we're dealing with?
Life is good. It's pretty cool over here for me.
Nice. Where are you located?
The Babington Estates,
All right.
but we're actually in Pittsburgh.
Okay. There you go. All right. So, first question is, you have a background in gymnastics. How did you get into wrestling, and who trained you?
I do have a background in gymnastics. I competed for about 10 years actually, and I got into wrestling through my husband. He's the one that introduced me into the independent scene, and once I got in the ring, it was pretty much over from there.
Were you a fan growing up?
Not really. I watched when I was a little kid. My grandfather was a wrestler, so I did go to some live events here in Pittsburgh. But other than that, I kind of stopped watching as I got into my teenage years.
Was he anyone that we would know?
He tagged with San Martino. His name was the Batman, so possibly
Oh,
people would
wow.
know him.
Well, even if not, everyone knows Bruno Sammartino, especially
Correct.
in that area of Pittsburgh where you're in.
Right.
Um, your debut was actually on national TV. It was on Raw against Asuka. How did that come about for your debut?
It was about 3 years ago, actually. This month, that was just kind of by chance. We had a contact. My husband was working an extra loop with them, and I sent my things in as a manager because I was only 3 months into training, and showed up. They needed someone, and I just kind of got lucky. Right place, right time.
You actually had the opportunity to cut a promo before this match, which normally for that type of match, that doesn't happen very often. So, what kind of preparation did you have to do for this? Being so early in your training, I would assume you didn't have a whole lot of promo experience. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was definitely my first promo. It's wild. I was just telling someone the other day. I don't think anyone would have ever remembered me if it weren't for the promo. I mean, the match was insignificant, a few strikes, a slap to the face, but they gave me a script. I don't believe that promo was supposed to be live on television. It was supposed to be taped. They told me if I needed a few takes, I could have them. So they gave me the paper, and the guy that was handling it came back over in 3 or 4 minutes, and I think he wanted to ask me something. He said, "Hey, did you look over that?" And I said, "Yeah, it's memorized. I have it." And he said, "Really?" So I recited it, and then he looked awfully perplexed. He said, "I'll be back." So I don't know who he talked to or what happened from there. They had me say it a few more times, and then when I was in Gorilla, I got the feeling that it wasn't going to be taped because the match prior to this segment was nearing its end, and I was already down ringside, and it was a one take live shot. I wasn't told that it was going to be live on television, but I kind of knew at that point. So I just kind of seized the opportunity.
Wow, for your very first promo, it definitely didn't look that way because I watched that again last night, and you mentioned that the match wasn't much. It was for anyone doesn't know what we're talking about. It was March 26th, 2018, against Asuka, just a couple weeks before WrestleMania of that year, where Asuka wrestled Charlotte. And you mentioned that you got a few strikes in. And it was a very short match. I believe it was around the 30-second level. But what I found kind of interesting, having seen some of your other stuff, is that's not necessarily the style that you're accustomed to. You did a little bit more of a like you said, a few strikes, whereas you do a little bit more flippy, a little bit more gymnastic in your matches now. So was that a real big departure for you, or with that being only 3 months into training, was that kind of like you trying to find your niche?
No, they kind of have everything planned that they want, and it was only three forearms and a slap to the face. I still throw forearms, but I do not like slapping people in the face unless there's like a huge story and build up to that. Honestly, that was not something that you're given the freedom to do in a WWE ring. So that was definitely called. But I do prefer more of the lucha acrobatic style. It's just in my wheelhouse. It feels comfortable for me.
Right. Well, that was definitely quite impressive for your first match in front of a crowd like that. What's the difference between wrestling with fans in attendance and these days, or earlier on without or limited fans in attendance? Which do you prefer? I would assume you probably prefer in front of fans.
Yeah, I mean it's a challenge with no fans. It really is. This is, I think, one of the main reasons why I perform. It's addicting. It's something that, you know, drives your match. You do it for the boos or the cheers or the reactions, and it's the most important part, I think, the emotion behind the performance. And, you know, everyone likes to get their shit in and do everything acrobatic and, you know, whatever they need to do to get themselves over, I suppose. But really, at the end of the day, if you don't connect with the audience, then it doesn't really matter. You did it all for nothing. So it took a while for me to learn that also. You know, you want to do a whole bunch of things, but at the end of the day, it's really just about the audience reacting and selling merchandise at the end of the show. So the fans are very, very important.
I guess with the fans not in attendance too, you probably don't know exactly how well your moves are coming off, and you know how well your performance is. Whereas when there was a crowd in there, you could kind of tell instantly as far by their reaction.
Right, exactly.
I know. Just as a fan watching, it was odd early on even before you know they would, you know, like WWE would put in the synthetic crowd noise. We were basically like hearing like the first week we were hearing people like say, "Hey, we're going to do this," and I just found that a very odd dichotomy as a fan.
Right. It is. It's strange, but I understand the industry tried to survive and is surviving somehow, and you know, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but I feel like at least on the television side, they've really still managed to thrive. So it worked to some degree.
Yep. And after that, you started working the indies. That was when you adopted the name Lady Frost. I believe your first match was in Rise Wrestling with London Ali. What was that like?
Yep. It was rough. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. It was just a tough situation. I wasn't a natural baby face either, that's for sure. It was really difficult for me to understand a lot of the psychology of wrestling at that point. I'd only trained for 6 months, and we were training once a week. So I was very, very undertrained still. But it was the first match. You get it out of the way, and you just keep learning and growing and going from there.
All right. I watched a lot of your matches last night just in preparation for speaking with you, and one match that I love, I watched it 4 times, was your match with Tess Valentine. And I think just from watching that, I think she's tremendous, and the two of you work together really well. You know, I actually looked for more of her matches, but I haven't seen any in a couple years, so I don't know if she's not really wrestling much anymore or what's going on there. But
Yeah.
what was working with her like?
So Tess, she has a little bit of a background in gymnastics or cheerleading also, which made it really fun, interesting. She has good body control, all of that, and I really, really loved her. It was great working her. She has since retired. I think it's probably been almost 2 years, and it's a shame. Like, she was one of my favorite opponents for sure, but that was, I want to say, like 2 years ago.
Right.
I mean, that was an older match. So, I don't have a lot of stuff, especially on YouTube, that's new. Any of our newer stuff is on IWTV, but if you subscribe there, you can find a lot of stuff. And the last year or two was really actually focused on tag team wrestling with my husband. We are always kind of presented as a package, and it was really, really fun and a different way to, you know, use both of our strengths in a tag match, which, you know, it's exciting. Tag team wrestling is big right now, and it was almost very difficult for me to start working singles again after we had put so much focus on that. But
yeah, well,
sorry, just trailed off.
Well, one of the things I liked most about what I saw of Tess's matches is that, like you said, she was pretty gymnastic and not really what you typically see of someone who, she's a little bit bigger than but then like you, for example. So seeing that off someone a little bit bigger, I've always found that really exciting. So that's what I liked about that. But you're talking about tagging with your husband as Pretty Proper, who goes by the name the Savage Gentleman. Um, but what's your favorite part about? Do you prefer? You mentioned that you kind of enjoy doing the tag team. Do you prefer doing it in the mixed tags, or do you prefer tagging like with other women? How do you prefer the intergender or mixed aspect?
That generally doesn't matter. I think wrestling anyone in a tag match is fun. The dynamic is definitely different because there are more working parts versus just like two players. So I do enjoy working with men just because I have that lucha kind of style, and they're big, strong bases, and they can take a bunch of crazy things, and I don't worry as much. Like I just, one of our last matches was against Bear Country, and I love them to pieces. They're incredible, and that you might have seen them on the pay-per-view at AEW this weekend. But I didn't worry for 1 second about anything that I was gonna throw at them because they're just like big beefy men. So,
Right.
but I don't have a preference really either way, I suppose.
During this period, you also worked an intergender battle royal for Blackcraft, which I believe was won by Zicky Dice. Um, what was the dichotomy like in that? Because again, it was with men and women in that match, which was just a really fun match to watch.
Was it intergender? I wasn't in that match. I was still a manager. My husband
Oh, you
was in
managed
that
it.
match, and I do remember it being craziness. All of that. That's a whole different podcast. That's something that would take a long time, but it was madness, I tell you.
I remember just seeing it being odd, and I thought I remembered seeing you in it, but I guess I didn't. But it was just seeing seeing women, seeing men, seeing Swoggle was in that match, I believe. It was just like seemed to be a whole lot going on there.
Oh yeah, it was mayhem for sure.
You also did some work in IWA Mid South. You wrestled at Winter Wars 2019 against Max the Impaler, and those crowds tend to be a little bit rowdy, so to speak, to
Hmm.
say the least. What was your experience like with that, and how was it working with Ian Rotten?
I don't know if I met Ian Rotten. I'm sure I did at some point. I don't really have um what was our connection? Shoot, I can't think of his name. But the connection, not Ian Rotten, whoever we went through was pretty great with us. I don't know if Ian was a partner or what's going on with any of that. I haven't been back, I don't think, since then.
Right.
But I had a good experience. I mean, the crowd was fine. They were rowdy. I didn't get, I got a lot of boos, obviously. I came out, and Max was the favorite. I think she was in the running for the title, or she had just won it or was going to. I'm not sure. So she was definitely a big-time babyface there. But I had a good experience. I mean, everything when I was, like, 2 years ago, I was so green. I'm not even 3 years in yet. So all of the footage that you're watching that's out there is, I probably had less than 20 matches at that point.
Right. Like for that short amount of time, you definitely worked around in some of the more well known independents, some of the bigger names, with some of the bigger names, like in Chikara, which of course now has since shut down. But what was your experience like in Chikara? Was it a good experience?
It was a fantastic experience. I learned most everything that I know from Quackenbush. I think he is fantastic as a coach. As far as my husband and I both were dealt with him. We moved to Philadelphia to train there after we moved to Maryland for Ring of Honor, and then we actually moved to Chicago. They were under some kind of deal with WWE, and he asked us to be a part of it, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the kids, the students, the teaching. We had great experiences. I'm really, really sad that it is no longer. I understand that people had really, different experiences. I know that he's tough as a coach. Sure, you could call him a jerk maybe, but like I think he's a stand-up guy, a good person, and that was our favorite place to be, actually.
Was it? I would think that for a coach, you'd want someone to be a little bit tougher and not someone to kind of like coddle you. That would just be my guess, having never been in that.
Everyone's different. Everyone's different, and I think there's different styles of coaching, and people need different things. Training at Rise was pretty lax, and there's a great, very nice coach there that, it's just a different style for sure. Like, I love Shakara's regimen, and it was just, everything had structure and meaning and purpose. And, I just think Quack is a genius. And I know whoever listens to this, like, you might get backfire, like, oh, fuck that guy, excuse my language. But, I only have good things to say about our experience. You know what I mean? So, I don't want to be insensitive toward anyone else. I love everyone that I met there. So much respect to everyone that had to deal with any other negative sides than we did. But we learned a whole lot there, that's for sure.
Yeah, I look at it like this. I don't know him, so I could only judge people by what I know. And you're the only person I've really spoken to who's talked about working with him, and it's favorable. So for all intents and purposes, I would assume it's generally a pretty good experience.
Yeah.
Like I said, during the time you've worked some names that we all know pretty well. Obviously, your debut against Asuka, but you also worked with Jordan Grace. She's got quite a good reputation through her time on the Independents, and then now what she's been doing in Impact. What's it like working with her?
It was good. We had a good time. I know, unhappy with that match. I was nervous. It was something that I didn't know that I was doing until a few days before or a week before maybe. But she was very easy to work, and spent some time with her actually in Maryland when, like I said, we were at Ring of Honor. Gresham was the coach there, so I saw her a little bit more. But, she was easy to work. She was great.
I don't know, Gresham was the coach while you were there. How much time did you spend in Ring of Honor? I watched some of that, and it was definitely one of the best uses of your talent that I've seen.
Sorry, my dogs are going crazy right now.
Yeah, mine does that too.
We were there for we were there for about 6 months actually.
Okay. Most recently, the most recent match that we've seen of yours was in January at JCW at Alley Cat's Real Hot Girl Shit. You defeated Molly McCoy at that show, and GCW definitely has a great following and reputation. What was working there like?
It was awesome. It was actually freezing in the venue. Anyone would tell you that. There was no heat that day, so that was interesting. But it was very busy. We weren't really allowed to be there before or after our block of the show because that was the 24-hour event. So it was kind of just like in and out, but everyone there is fantastic. The locker room, production, crew, everything, commentary. It was a great experience, actually.
Wait, so you only came to the building to do your match and left as soon as it was over, pretty much?
No, for our specific block of the show, which was a few hours. So you get there before call time. Yeah, we weren't permitted to stay and just show up and watch everything else because of guidelines and safety issues, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Do you have anyone who would be your dream opponent, whether it be someone from the past or in the present?
I like to say this all the time. I really don't have dream opponents just because you never know what kind of magic you're going to create with someone. I think storylines are very, very important into building emotion and believability. Other than that, it's kind of just like putting things together. And I don't know. I think there's something important and special about building something up. And I don't know, you can create magic with the most peculiar of opponents. It could be male, female, non-binary, whoever it is. I had a match with Still Life, who is now Edith Surreal, and I didn't know how that was going to go, and it ended up being one of my favorite matches. You know what I mean? So I can't pick, at least thus far. I know anyone can just be like, oh, I think I should wrestle so-and-so at WrestleMania. Like, I don't look at it that way.
Right. I was just thinking of that as I was watching some of your things. Thought of a couple people that I was like, man, that would be a good match to have them together. But if you
Who
had
were you thinking?
Tessa Blanchard,
Oh, yep. Yeah. She's good at wrestling.
we love Tessa on the show. Do you have any opponent that you've been in the ring with that was your favorite that you think you just had to just worked really well together?
Honestly, so I think I watched it once, and it was one of these shows that it felt one way, and when I watched it back, I was like, wow, that didn't look the way that it felt. But I wrestled for the second time Riley Shepard at a promotion in New Jersey, and it was an outdoor show. It was during this shutdown and everything. We had built a feud, and the second match, we had a false count anywhere, no DQ match. So it was interesting. It was different. We trusted each other. We went kind of crazy. We were doing wild spots. We had weapons. And I really felt like the crowd was invested. They were engaged. It was fun. It was different. It wasn't like, where are we going next? What are we doing? We just beat each other up, and we really beat each other up. I dumped an ice bucket on her head and gave her a little super kick to the head. So it was just that was one of my matches where I really felt like I learned a lot, and I got the essence of professional wrestling.
That sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to find that one because that sounds definitely the ice bucket too adds a whole other level of interest.
It was pretty spectacular, and then she got a moonsault, and the ice went everywhere in the ring. So cinematically, it was beautiful. But that's what I mean. Those are things. I love Riley, but you just don't know how stuff like that is going to go or how it's going to read. And sure, I knew I was going to get a reaction out of the ice bucket, but it was just the crowd being so close right there on the ground. And I did a snowball fight to her on a chair on the outside. And again, you don't know how that's going to go. You don't practice that. You just throw that. Usually I do it in the ring to the corner. But it was just I nailed it. I landed right on her. The chair went down. We went tumbling. And those are the days where you're like, hell yeah. This is what it's about, you know?
Right. That definitely sounds good too, especially with the ice and the snow. Now that you did some work for AEW, but now that they have Sting there, they already have the snow there, so they could definitely have used that.
Don't remind me. That's been my dream entrance forever. So I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? I blow snow out of my hand. That's so not you just can't even do that anymore. I can't hold a candle to Sting. Crap.
Right. That was pretty cool. And then you're like, well, I think it was the week after your second match there was when Sting showed up. So it's but you did wrestle two matches on AEW for Dark. One was a tag match with Genocide against Ivelisse and Diamante, and the next week you wrestled Red Velvet. I personally was really hoping to see you in the recent Eliminator tournament, but how did it come for you to start working with them?
I had someone put my name over. That's it. And then I got an email, and that's all. It just takes one person to kind of put you over.
Is there are you planning, or has there been conversation about doing more work with them? Because I personally think that I really just enjoyed your character, like I said, your look, your entrance, especially the snow. And I think if you combine that with the athleticism and one of the things that you do, I think that I like a lot is the innovation of that the handstand knee that you're doing. I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
And I think it would make you a pretty marketable character, especially for young girls, with the stickers you sell on your website. Ideal for someone to put on a laptop or something like that. So is there any more plans for you to do any work with AEW in the future?
Well, I was recently out with injury. I kind of still am. It's been 5 weeks. I had 6 to 8, so I return at the end of the week, or the end of the month, rather. And we'll go from there. So I haven't been active at all recently. That Game Changer show was the last one. So we'll see what the future holds. I mean, it's always good to feel wanted somewhere, anywhere. They give you a call back. I know they were using a lot of Florida talent just to eliminate outside state travel. But they like who they like. So I just try to keep doing what I'm doing, working hard, and we'll see what happens.
The recovery is going well, though?
Yeah, recovery is going well. I'll be back.
So when you come back, how do you see the evolution of your character?
Right now, I like where she's at. I don't really think that there's going to be much change. I think the recent change kind of already happened. You saw the darker gear, the two-piece gear, and it kind of is dependent upon if I'm working more tag-style matches or solo matches. But it's hard to really figure out what I would change when I'm not a permanent or a mainstay at any promotion.
Right. With Wrestlemania Weekend coming up, that's usually a pretty big weekend for wrestling shows. And now that they're opening up a little bit, obviously you said you won't be doing any wrestling probably because you're not scheduled for anything. Are you doing any like conventions or any virtual signings, anything like that you can promote?
I will be back at the end of this month, so I actually will be wrestling down in Tampa.
Okay.
Nothing has been announced on the intranets right now, but we will be down there.
Okay. Well, if you let me know, I'll definitely make sure that we'll promote it for you.
Awesome.
Do you have any messages you'd like to say to all your fans?
No, but I appreciate all of the support and love. It means a lot, especially when we can't be together on shows and stuff. The online support or any purchase of merch is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and you can get those kind of things at ladyfrost.bigcartel.com. She also has a pro wrestling tees store, so go ahead and check that out as well. Also, if you're on social media, you can follow her. She has a Facebook fan page at Real Lady Frost, Instagram and Twitter also at Real Lady Frost. Did I see somewhere recently that someone on social media told you that they were John Moxley's cousin or something like that?
Oh my. Yeah, I think that message was going around to some of the indie girls. Yeah, I don't even remember what it was. They were one of the clowns in WWE or something, and they wanted to go out on a date. Those messages are always fun.
Sounds like it. Well, you Lady Frost says, and you'd see it on her Pro Wrestling Tees store, the coolest wrestler you'll ever meet. And after this conversation, I am low to say that it's hard to disagree with that. So, Lady Frost, thanks so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you want to plug or promote or anything that I've missed?
No, you did a great job promoting me at the end. It was fantastic. I didn't have to remember my links. At least my handles are all the same, but you got it all right. I appreciate it, and thank you so much for the interview.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be right back.